Okay, let's unpack this. We are diving into what might be the single most crucial, high-stakes technological debate of the century. The great divergence in autonomous driving.
It really is. I mean, we've got a huge stack of sources here, research papers, market analysis, engineering blogs, and they all point to this massive schism.
Right. A schism in a trillion-dollar industry. On one side, you've got this pure, AI-centric minimalist approach. It's championed by, well, one giant player betting everything on software.
The vision-only path.
Exactly. And on the other side, you've got literally everyone else. Waymo, Mobileye, Baidu, Huawei, and they are all banking on multi-sensor redundancy, on provable, verifiable safety systems.
It's the ultimate technology cage match. And what's so fascinating is that this isn't just an engineering argument. It's a deep philosophical divide.
How so?
It's the difference between believing you can build a superhuman AI brain that drives based on learned patterns versus insisting you must have layered hardware defenses to guarantee safety today, right now.
And Tesla's all in on the first one.
All in, while the rest of the global industry is betting on the second.
So our mission today is to really get into the weeds on this. We're going to examine the tech behind Tesla's end-to-end neural net FSD V12 and V14 and contrast it with Waymo's safety-first modular stack.
And we can't forget the innovative third paths being forged, especially by Mobileye and the incredibly fast-moving Chinese market players.
For you, the listener, trying to make sense of this market, this choice vision versus redundancy, it determines everything. The cost of the hardware, the processing power.
The whole business model, right. And maybe most importantly, the ability of these cars to handle the messy, unpredictable real world, what engineers call the long tail.
The ultimate tension here really is between cost and confidence. Tesla promises massive scale at low hardware cost, but it demands near-perfect AI.
While Waymo is all about the highest level of verifiable confidence, using every sensor they can, LiDAR, radar, cameras, even if it costs more and means a slower rollout.
That trade-off is the central theme of this entire deep dive.
It is. Let's get into it.
Okay, let's start with a head-to-head on the sensor philosophy, because the numbers here are so stark. It's like they're building cars for two completely different planets.
They are, in a sense. They're building systems to solve the problem of driving in two fundamentally different ways. And you see it in the hardware immediately.
Right. So if you look at Tesla XSD, especially with versions 12 through 14, they are all in, and I mean all in, on vision only.
Just cameras.
Just cameras. We're talking about 8 cameras placed around the vehicle. And what's really critical here is that they actively removed the radar units they used to have. No LiDAR, ever.
It's not just minimalism, it's a statement, an AI-centric statement.
Exactly. Now, you contrast that with Waymo Driver, their 6th generation system.
Yeah.
And it's just a different world.
It's the gold standard for sensor fusion redundancy. Their suite has over 24 sensors. I mean, it's a defensive grid.
Break that down for us. What's in that grid?
You're looking at around 14 cameras, 4 powerful LiDAR units for that true 360-degree view, 6 radar systems, and even acoustic sensors to pick up things like emergency sirens.
So why? Why this massive and presumably expensive suite of sensors for Waymo?
It's the non-negotiable cornerstone of their safety case. Their whole business model is level 4 unsupervised autonomy. That means no human backup driver.
In those defined geofenced areas.
Right. And for that to work, you need absolute confidence no matter what the environment throws at you.
And cameras alone, no matter how smart the AI is, they have limitations, don't they? I mean, weather, sun glare.
Precisely. LiDAR is essential because it gives you this incredibly precise millimeter-level 3D map of the world by shooting out millions of laser pulses. And it does that whether it's midnight or if the sun is glaring right into the lens.
So it's building that point cloud, that 3D model, completely independent of light.
Which is vital for navigating and for cross-referencing their high-definition maps. Then you have radar, which is the expert at detecting speed and velocity, especially in bad weather.
That's the key redundancy then.
It is. Think about dense fog, heavy snow, or just a torrential downpour. Conditions where a camera system might be, seriously compromised. In those moments, the LiDAR and radar provide a fully redundant safety layer.
A fallback.
A fallback that the AI can rely on. It's a safety-first philosophy, through and through.
Okay, so let's flip back to the Tesla argument, which is all about cost and scalability.
Yeah.
I mean, if a Tesla hardware kit is in the low thousands of dollars, and a Waymo system used to be, over $50,000, That cost gap is everything.
It's the entire financial equation. And the core idea driving Tesla is, well, it's biological mimicry.
Meaning if humans can do it with just our eyes.
Then a super smart, constantly learning AI should be able to do it, and eventually do it better with just high-resolution cameras.
And the economic implication of that is just enormous.
It's unconstrained scale. Because the hardware cost is minimal, they can push FSD out to their entire fleet, millions of vehicles all over the world. It turns FSD into a high-margin software product.
Instead of a limited, expensive mobility service stuck in a few cities, like Waymo.
Exactly.
But doesn't that pure vision approach just shift the cost? I mean, critics argue you save on sensors, but then you have to spend a fortune on the computing package.
That is a huge challenge to the cost argument. And we're seeing it play out. The computational demand of their new end-to-end neural network, so FSD V12 and V14, is just immense.
So much so that the latest updates are becoming exclusive to their newest hardware.
Right, to Hardware 4 or HW4. And that system offers dramatically more processing power, specifically to handle that huge computational load without hitting bottlenecks in memory or speed.
So if you need a top-of-the-line custom chip to run your low-cost software, the true cost advantage starts to shrink a bit.
Especially as the price of LiDAR and radar continues to fall. And that leads us right into the architectural debate, modular versus end-to-end. This is about how the car thinks, not just what it sees.
Okay, so define these for us. What does the modular paradigm look like for a Waymo or a Cruise?
The modular paradigm is, think of it like a bureaucracy. It's a clear, sequential assembly line of thinking.
An assembly line.
Yeah. First, there's perception, that's identifying objects. Then prediction, figuring out where those objects are going. Then, planning, calculating the car's safest path. And finally, control actually steering and braking.
So it's like a corporate production line. Each department does its job and hands it off to the next.
Exactly. And each step is a distinct, verifiable system. That's fantastic for debugging. If the car does something weird, engineers can trace the fault right back to the prediction module or the perception module.
And crucially, it's easier for regulators like the NHTSA to audit. It's not a black box.
It is not a black box. Now, the end-to-end paradigm, or E2E, this is Tesla's revolution, the photon-to-control model.
This one sounds more like a radical thinker than a bureaucracy.
That's a great way to put it. The integrated neural network takes the raw sensor input, the photons hitting the camera, and in one massive step, it directly outputs the control commands.
So it just bypasses all those intermediate steps. It's not wasting time labeling that's a pedestrian, that's a stop sign. It just sees the scene and decides how to drive.
That is the power of it. Generalization and contextual awareness. It replaces millions of lines of brittle, hard-coded if-then logic with deep machine learning.
So it can see nuance.
It can see nuance that a modular system might miss, like a complex hand gesture from a construction worker, or the way a car is about to merge without signaling. That's crucial for tackling that long tail of weird driving scenarios.
The E2E model is basically a massive compression of knowledge then. It turns millions of files of video into a giant memory bank.
Precisely. The system compresses enormous driving video datasets into the network parameters themselves. It's very similar to how large language models compress the entire internet. It lets the AI's driving decisions feel smoother, more predictive, more, well, human-like.
Okay, this is where that tech schism starts to directly impact company valuations and market power. Because Tesla's data engine is cited over and over as its biggest, maybe insurmountable, competitive advantage.
It's the ultimate moat. The scale of it is just unprecedented, and it creates this huge asymmetry in the market that competitors are scrambling to counter with other tech.
Just how big is this scale we're talking about?
We're talking millions of FSD-equipped vehicles acting as distributed data collectors. They're gathering billions of miles of labeled real-world driving data every single year.
And it's not just the quantity, it's the quality, right? That's where shadow mode comes in.
Exactly. Let's break down shadow mode, because that feedback loop is what makes their evolution so fast.
Okay, so how does it work?
In shadow mode, the FSD AI is running silently in the background, driving the car digitally alongside the human. It sees the world, makes its decision, say, to merge right, and then it compares that to what the human actually did.
So if the AI wanted to stay put, but the human driver swerved to avoid something.
That disagreement, that discrepancy is automatically flagged. That's the valuable edge case.
The system knows exactly when it got something wrong, or at least different from a human.
Precisely. That specific incident gets clipped, labeled, and uploaded for targeted retraining of the neural network. It's this incredibly efficient, continuous feedback loop.
And that's something no competitor can currently match at that scale.
Not even close. And this ability to constantly learn from real human driving is why you see analysts talking about Tesla as an AI and robotics company now, not just a car maker.
Valuation is now based on the FSD promise.
Completely. The company's massive market cap is hanging on the successful execution of FSD and the robotaxi network. The data is the oil, and Tesla owns the biggest field.
So if you're a Waymo or a Mobileye and you can't possibly match that fire hose of real-world data, how do you compete? The answer seems to be foundation models and generative AI.
This is really the bleeding edge, and it's heavily inspired by what we've seen with large language models. Foundation models, or FMs, are these huge neural networks trained on vast generalized data sets.
And they're designed for knowledge transfer.
Right. So skills learned in one task, like navigating a roundabout in London, can be applied to a new but similar task, like a complex intersection in Los Angeles. It develops a unified, generalized understanding of driving physics and rules.
And Waymo's using these.
They are. They use two separate FMs, one for perception and another for prediction and planning. And that separation actually makes the system more explainable. It's less of a total black box.
What about Mobileye?
Mobileye integrates its safety model, called RSS Responsibility Sensitive Safety. It acts as a guardian. The foundation model proposes an action, and the RSS guardian makes sure that action is guaranteed not to violate core safety principles.
It's a safety net on top of the generalized AI.
A verifiable one, which is critical for their OEM partners.
And we've seen some pretty amazing demonstrations of this generalization power. The Wave example you brought up is a great one.
It really shows the potential. Wave, a UK startup, trained a model just on left-side driving in England. Then, with very little extra data, they adapted it to drive on the right side of the road in the US.
Wow.
That ability to learn new rule sets and cultural norms is the leap needed to get to level 4 or 5 globally without having to drive billions of miles in every single country.
Which brings us to synthetic reality. If you can't get the real-world data, you have to digitally manufacture the chaos.
You have to. You must. The long tail of rare but critical events. A tire blowout, a deer jumping out, they just don't happen often enough in real-world data. So you have to generate them synthetically.
So what are some of the more innovative methods being used here?
Well, the first category is sensor data synthesis. You have models like scene diffusion generating realistic digital outlines of objects to train the perception AI. But the real game changer is something called Unisim.
Unisim.
It's a neural sensor simulator. It can take one single real-world recording of an incident and then convert it into a fully interactive simulation. It lets engineers generate synthetic LiDAR and camera data from 1 million new viewpoints and conditions.
So you turn one 2-minute event into 1,000 specific training scenarios without ever going back to the street.
It's incredible leverage. And the second method is traffic flow synthesis. This is about simulating how unpredictable humans behave. You have models like RIDA that generate traffic that mimics human impatience and aggression.
And I saw one called CGG++ that's guided by language.
Yes, an engineer can literally type in a command like, generate a scenario where a truck double parks, forcing a bus to merge illegally. And the system generates that complex, multi-agent chaos on demand.
It's targeted chaos generation.
Yeah.
Let's pivot back to hardware for a second. This is where Mobileye seems to be finding its niche, not just raw power, but efficiency.
Mobileye is all about the chip architecture. It's a classic engineering trade-off, efficiency versus flexibility.
And they claim their IQ6 high chip hits the sweet spot.
They argue it has the right mix of flexibility for complex neural nets, but with the high efficiency needed for a car's power budget. They've focused on increasing transformer efficiency, the core of these networks, by up to 100 times.
How do they even do that?
Through things like intelligent tokenization. That's the process of turning raw camera images into small digital chunks or tokens for the AI to process. By optimizing which tokens are created and how they communicate, they cut down on redundant processing.
So they're optimizing the AI's internal language to run on specialized, lower power hardware instead of just throwing a data center at the problem.
That is the essence of their strategy. It's architectural elegance.
That idea of structure and verifiable safety, the total opposite of the black box, that leads us perfectly to Mobileye's Compound AI System, or CAIS, and their PGF fusion approach.
PGF is Mobileye's big answer to the safety and liability problem. It's a mandatory layered safety net. Think of it like a flight control system with a pilot, a co-pilot, and an independent emergency computer.
That's a great analogy. Walk us through it using that structure.
Okay, so the primary system is the pilot. It's the standard self-driving system making the main decisions, generating the route.
And the guardian is the co-pilot.
A very vigilant co-pilot. It's a completely separate, rule-based AI. Its only job is to watch what the primary system wants to do and check it against hard-coded safety rules like their RSS model. If it sees a problem,
It takes over.
it forces a switch to the fallback system, which is that redundant emergency computer. The fallback is another complete, separate self-driving system that's ready to generate a guaranteed safe alternative route or action at a moment's notice.
It's a system of checks and balances, but for an AI.
And it allows for complex, nuanced driving while still maintaining a clear, auditable boundary of what is and isn't safe.
Okay, so let's go from that verifiable system to the E2E black box. This feels like the biggest roadblock for Tesla in terms of winning regulatory and just public trust.
It's the absolute core of the black box problem. In a structured system, investigators can look at the code and see the logic that led to a crash. But in a pure E2E system, the decision is the output of billions of weighted connections. It's emergent behavior.
So if the NHTSA investigates a crash, how can the company prove the system did what it was supposed to do?
That's the multi-trillion-dollar question. It creates this huge legal and ethical challenge around liability. As we move to level 4 and 5, where the human is out of the loop, the responsibility for a crash shifts entirely to the manufacturer.
And it's hard to see the insurance industry just accepting liability for a black box. They can't explain why it chose to speed up instead of brake.
Precisely. And adding to that, you have this growing issue around the data itself. That data moat we talked about could eventually be recognized as a whole new asset class.
Meaning consumers might start demanding to be paid for the data their driving provides.
Absolutely. It opens up all sorts of political risk. You could see calls for a car owner bill of rights, demanding control and transparency over how their data is being used to build these massive robotaxi businesses.
Let's shift to how safety is actually being measured on the road right now, because there are real track records to look at.
The focus is definitely shifting to verifiable safety records. Things like mean time between failures or just incident-free mileage. Waymo, for its part, boasts a pretty impressive record.
What are their numbers looking like?
They've reported an injury crash rate that's about 90% lower than human drivers in similar areas, and an average incident-free mileage of around 360,000 miles.
That's a pretty big number. And it really highlights the difference between a controlled, geofenced approach and a generalized one.
It does. And regulators are responding to this complexity by changing how they even evaluate safety. Look at Euro NCAP.
Right, they're moving beyond simple tests.
Yeah. The Euro NCAP Vision 2030 framework is getting rid of the old rating system. The new standard assesses performance across 4 phases of a potential accident: safe driving, crash avoidance, crash protection, and post-crash safety.
So they're forcing car makers to prove competence across the entire timeline of an incident.
Exactly. It reflects the need to evaluate the entire decision-making chain of these complex AI systems.
Okay, so we've covered the tech and safety schisms in the West. We have to now look at the immense competitive velocity coming out of the East. The Chinese ecosystem is not just playing catch-up, it's setting its own pace.
China is a massive, intensely competitive market. You have huge scale, government support, and they are deploying incredibly fast.
Who are the main players we need to be watching?
Well, the most visible one is Baidu with its Apollo Go service. They are arguably the global volume leader in robotaxis. They've done over 17 million rides across 22 cities.
And they're expanding internationally.
To Dubai and Abu Dhabi, yeah. They're seen as the high-volume value play on the global market.
And what's their tech alignment? Vision, redundancy.
They're sort of in the middle. They use a multi-sensor suite like Waymo, but they are very rapidly developing their own end-to-end systems. Then you have the other massive force, which is Huawei.
And they seem pretty firm on the redundancy side.
They do. Their executives have said they believe multimodal sensor fusion LiDAR, radar, cameras working together is the safest and superior path forward.
Then there's Xpeng. Their CEO gave some pretty high-profile praise to a competitor.
That was a huge moment. After a 5-hour test of Tesla's FSD V14, He Xiaopeng said it had advanced to something approaching near level 4 capability. He praised how smooth and steady it was.
And that's influenced their own strategy.
It seems so. Xpeng is moving more towards vision dominance with their own AI Eagle Eye vision solution, though they're keeping their hardware flexible enough to still use LiDAR and radar. It's a bit of a hedge.
What about the new players, like Xiaomi?
Xiaomi's entry with the SU7 just shows the urgency in that market. They're trying to grow their R&D team to 1,500 people by year end. But it's interesting. In some recent Level 2 ADS highway tests in China, Tesla's system actually outperformed many of the local brands.
Even without being able to train on local Chinese data.
Right. And that performance gap actually prompted officials to urge the local brands to, address the lag.
Okay, so with all this global competition and tech divergence, how does this translate into what investors should be looking for? You mentioned 2026 is becoming the execution over vision era.
The market is really shifting from speculative bets on which tech will win to who can actually execute a reliable service at scale and make the numbers work.
And the projections for 2026 are pretty massive.
They are. Morgan Stanley is forecasting that 33 U.S. cities will launch AV services that year. And by 2032, they predict Waymo and Tesla will capture a combined 70% of the U.S. autonomous driving mileage.
That's a huge disruption.
It is. And for investors, the valuation models are now split into three very distinct categories: the utility play, the value play, and the execution bet.
Okay, break those down for us.
So Waymo is the utility play. It's all about proven stability and safety-first deployment. Their operating costs are between about $1.36 and $1.43 per mile. They're a trusted, disciplined player.
And their valuation reflects that.
It does. Their valuation per weekly ride is very high, around $400,000, because the market trusts them. It's a predictable revenue play.
And the second one, Baidu, is the value play.
Right. They are the global volume leader, but they trade at a geopolitical discount because of the risks in the Chinese market. Their valuation per weekly ride is much lower, around $168,000. It's a high-risk, high-reward value opportunity.
And finally, the ultimate high-stakes bet, Tesla, the execution bet.
Tesla's entire model depends on them proving the E2E vision model works everywhere, safely. And their big advantage is cost. Their target is just 20 to 40 cents per mile to operate a robotaxi.
That's a massive cost advantage.
If they can execute on that, they will dominate. Their entire market cap is resting on the successful launch of the Cybercab, targeted for April 2026.
Meanwhile, we're seeing the traditional automakers kind of backing away from this L4, L5 race.
It's a massive strategic realignment. They're seeing the immense cost and difficulty of trying to compete head-on with Waymo or Tesla. So GM is pivoting its Cruise team to focus more on L2 Plus and L3 ADAS systems like Super Cruise.
Things they can actually sell and make money on today.
Exactly. And Ford is being even more pragmatic. They're openly exploring just licensing the technology from competitors rather than building their own from scratch.
So the divergence isn't just vision versus redundancy. It's also build versus buy. Are you building the car, or are you building the AI brain that drives it?
Precisely. And the investment community knows the real long-term value is in that AI layer.
So this deep dive has really laid bare that core conflict. It's this intense technological and philosophical split between E2E AI complexity, driven by massive data, and multi-sensor redundancy, constrained by mapping and verifiable safety rules.
And the whole battle for profitability and public trust is now shifting to which system can handle that messy, long tail of driving scenarios with the highest safety and lowest cost.
It seems like the biggest bottleneck for everyone is still acquiring and validating those rare, dangerous edge cases, the sheer unpredictability of humans on the road.
It is. And while synthetic data and foundation models are getting better, we're even seeing large language models being used to add common sense reasoning. That's still a fundamentally opaque, generalized black box.
Which brings us to the final question.
It does. The core challenge is training an AI to deal with driving behavior that has, frankly, nothing to do with the rules of the road. People breaking rules, being distracted, being aggressive. So if the ultimate metrics are safety and cost, you have to ask yourself this question.
What's more valuable?
What's more valuable? Generalized, human-like common sense from a black box, or the provable, hard-coded safety constraints of a system like Mobileye's PGF? And maybe more importantly, which one will regulators and the trillion-dollar insurance industries that stand behind them trust first? The verifiable rule checker or the generalized black box that drives like a human?
That question of regulatory trust, that might be what decides the winner in the end.